I didn't know what my purpose was, to be sure. I think now I know for a fact that we're a platform. That's what we are. We're a platform to discover talent. We're a conduit where people come, they pass through, we impact, they go out, they conquer the world. These people are light. Their energy is positive, they're young, they work hard, all they want to do is perform.
Bolanle Austen-Peters is a Nigerian businesswoman, lawyer, and award-winning film and theatre director. She is the founder and managing director of Terra, the foremost Nigerian arts and culture center located in Lagos, Nigeria. Bolanle is also the founder and CEO of BAP Productions, which raised the bar of production in the theatre industry in Nigeria since 2013. When I met Bolanle, I was especially interested in what led to this creative genius.
As a typical Yoruba girl, I grew up in Lagos and in Ibadan. And I guess I was raised with the same values that the average Nigerian is raised with. The values of honesty, integrity, hard work, and a belief in God. Those are the fundamental principles or values that I grew up with. In our home, we spoke both English and Yoruba. But I think that the value of my culture wasn't so clear to me as a child because naturally everybody around you is like you. But it was when I started traveling the world and I started noticing that we had something unique. And working outside of Nigeria also exposed me to the fact that most people, especially Westerners, cherish their culture. And that's why if you're in Nigeria, you have the French Cultural Center, you have the British Council, you have everybody promoting their culture, the Chinese, the Indians. And I recognize that we have such a valuable and important tool to sell to the world. But for some reason, we were shy to do so, and we're always in a hurry to embrace other people's cultures. So I think working outside of Nigeria with the United Nations as an expatriate made me recognize that we were unique, very unique, with a beautiful culture that the world needs to see.
I noticed that you're always talking about the beauty and the celebration of your culture, specifically Yoruba. Would you say that your parents had the greatest amount of influence on you in terms of realizing the beauty of your culture, or was it something that, was it where you studied? What was the key trigger that caused you to realize how much your beautiful Yoruba culture had to offer the world?
I think it's an evolving process. Like, most of us went to English-speaking schools. Our friends all speak English. A lot of us even encourage our children to speak English. I love literature and arts, and I think those are part of your cultural heritage. So those for me were the founding interests in culture. So growing up and traveling, like I said, mixing with a lot of people that were not Nigerians and recognizing that they celebrated their own cultures and would probably not speak to you in another language apart from theirs if you understood theirs, I realized that we need to do a lot more than we are about celebrating and exposing our culture to the world. So my being who I am today, doing what I'm doing, is a function of the fact that I am evolving as a person. I'm recognizing every day that there's a lot more that we can be doing, there's a lot more we can be selling, and there's a lot more we can be gaining as Nigerians selling Nigerian heritage. And if you look at when we started Terra Culture in 2003, it was a very novel, very different approach to business. Nobody believed in it. Nobody understood what I was doing, as a matter of fact. They didn't understand why would you want to do a cultural center about Nigerian culture in Nigeria. And less than 2 decades later, everybody's talking about Nigerian art, Nigerian food, Nigerian fashion, theater, film. So we were ahead of our time.
Bolanle has organized, managed, and attended numerous workshops and seminars both within and outside of the United Nations system on various issues. Prior to that, she worked as a lawyer with the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, New York, Ethiopia, and Namibia. She returned to Nigeria in 2001 as a consultant to the UNDP Lagos. When you think about Terra Culture, which is the institution that you have built and been able to use as a vehicle to celebrate African culture to the rest of the world, I would always believe that your background was heavily in arts and culture, but ironically, you trained as a lawyer, and over the years, you've had a number of rather interesting roles, including consulting for the Ford Foundation, yes, working as a very key player in the UN. Now take us through that journey.
So I started off as a lawyer, like you rightly pointed out, and then I started working for the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva. Then I moved to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Ethiopia, working with Sudanese refugees as a lawyer, protection officer. So basically I determined the rights of refugees and their status, and also resettled them outside of Ethiopia. Then I moved to the United Nations Development Program in Namibia as a program officer. Wow. Again, just working on the poverty portfolio. And then a lot of travel, a lot of work here and there. Came back to Nigeria, did some work for UNDP as a consultant, and the same for the Ford Foundation. So all those things were just part of the process. Even worked as a lawyer. Yes. Then I realized that I liked field work a lot. Working for the UN made me realize that I'm a people's person, and I thrived best when I'm outside and I'm out and about doing my thing. So working as a lawyer was really difficult for me in Nigeria. So I decided to start this because my husband challenged me when I said, oh, why are children not speaking Yoruba? And he said, well, do something about it. And I figured that there was no cultural space in Nigeria. If you travel a lot, if you visit a lot of museums and cultural spaces around the world, which I do a lot, I found out that there was something missing in Nigeria. And that's how the idea of Terra culture came to me. Now, if you look at what I've done here, it's about the identity of a people. Terra culture represents the art of a people, the food, the bookstore and courier, the theater, and the movies that we celebrate, and our languages. So essentially it's like bits and pieces of us, visual arts to the culinary art and all of that. That's how I founded Terra. But yeah.
Yes, I feel like one of the things that you've actually managed to really pioneer with your work is your production company, where you've actually produced some of the greatest musical productions. One of the ones that I think particularly stood out to me was Sarah the Musical, which really set a benchmark in the industry without any infrastructure, and it's become a global success. I've seen rave reviews all over the world about how you have really set the bar extremely high for the standard of work that your production house has created. What were some of the challenges that you were able to face in such a almost anything goes space and form a very successful, profitable business that is recognized and celebrated globally?
So when we started our production house, it was purely for tweeters. It was something that happened because I had opened up our space to theater practitioners to use. And I began to fall in love all over again with theater. And I asked myself, what could I bring into that space? Because the tendency is for us to always criticize and do nothing about what we're not happy about in Nigeria. So I said, I think I can add a thing or two to this space. So I came up with the idea of Saro and musicals, that I wanted to do musicals because first I recognized that when we had anything that had music in it on stage, we had a higher attendance and people participated more. So I said, whatever it is I'm going to do on stage has to have a musical element. Now, loving stage as I do, whenever I'm out of Nigeria, there's no trip, I'll make sure I see a performance somewhere, wherever. I said, I'd like to do it at that standard, that level. Of course, there was no infrastructure, there was no funding. So it was a bit of a fanciful idea and wish on my part. But then I said, you know what, let me go for it. So I came up with the story of Saru, the musical, and said, look, let's talk about the story of 4 boys coming into Lagos. Lagos is the land of opportunity. Everybody comes here to be whoever it is they dream to be. So that's the story of Saru coming to Lagos. It was difficult. First, there was no theater space for performance, so we used a marble hall. It was horrific. The sound was bouncing. It wasn't, you know, when people talk about success story, they forget the pain. They forget the disappointments. They forget when you stumble. But I was determined. that I wasn't going to let the lack of infrastructure, the lack of even skilled hands deter me. So the natural instinct was for me to fall back and say I'm not doing anymore. But I said, no, we're going to crack this. So we kept doing this, and somehow, maybe 5 years ago, began to turn the bend. And we built our own theater. We built 4 additional theaters for Lagos State.
Wow.
These were things that didn't exist when we started this journey in 2013. And today, most of the under 30s that are in theater today have 90% of them have come out of the space. Amazing. That you see at Terra Culture. So it's a beautiful story, and there's still a long way to go, but we can see the progress on a daily basis. I
do feel that there is a ripple effect with it beginning, the genesis coming from Terra Culture and your stables. You mentioned, you've been empowered by the local government to build multiple theatre opportunities and spaces for people to thrive in. How do you feel the theatre industry has transitioned over the years? And do you really see more room for growth for young entrepreneurs and startups?
Absolutely. I mean, to think that when we started out, like I said, attendance for theatre shows then would be 20 people, 30 people. Now, when we have our shows here, we're sold out.
Sold out.
At times, you have 10,000 people in less than a week.
Wow.
It's unprecedented. When we went to South Africa, I can never forget the memories of South Africa. We had a 1,500-seater theatre. We performed for 2 weeks, and it was sold out day after day. And coming to Nigeria, we found out that last Christmas, there were 5 musicals showing and all doing very well. And 4 out of the 5 musicals, everybody came out of Terra Culture.
Amazing.
So it's a story that is unfolding. Where it will take us to, we do not know. But one thing is sure, it's getting bigger, it's getting better. And in terms of even corporate participation, there's a lot more corporate sponsors that are on board now. MTN was there at the beginning, EcoBank, Amstel. Everybody is now interested in the theater game. To think that 15 years ago, nobody even knew where we were going with this. And we're starting our own International Theatre Festival this year, which is going to be a landmark in theatre in Nigeria, because what we will be doing is we're going to be bringing in performances from abroad so that Nigeria also becomes a destination for performing arts, and we'll have the best of Nigerian performers and schools participating in this. So things are definitely evolving, and it's going to get bigger and better.
Amazing. One of the things I'd say that you are phenomenally talented about is telling good African stories. An example of this was in 2015 when you commenced the production of the film 93 Days film. Now, obviously it was telling a very tragic story of the Ebola virus, but it was incredibly impactful and has been recognized globally with so many awards under its belt. How important do you think it is to tell our own authentic stories?
Very interesting. 93 Days was my first foray into movie making. We told that story because it's a very unique success story. Nigeria and Nigerians were able to beat the Ebola virus. And when I saw the script, it was beautifully written, and it was brought to me by my co-producers, Dotun Olakori and Steve Gukas. So we partnered and we produced, I think, this phenomenal film that traveled to about 7 film festivals and got awards as well. And in doing 93 Days, I recognized that movies are fascinating because first is the fact that they're there for posterity. And after that, we did Bling Legosians. It's important that we tell our stories for several reasons. First is that, if you notice what the Western world has been able to do in terms of cultural imperialism and all of that, it's because they keep telling their stories and they keep pushing it out there. So they're able to take over the narrative about themselves and forge an image or an identity for themselves through the eyes of through art. They've been able to tell us stories that are whether true or untrue. That is the narrative they've put out there. We haven't done a great job of telling our stories, and I think that the younger generation and ourselves, what we're trying to do now is to change that, start telling our classics, stage Olurumbi, Fela and the Kalakota Queens, and then what we'll be doing in telling the stories like Bling Lagosians. Everybody sees Lagos as, they forget that there's a cosmopolitan side to Lagos. So that's what I try to depict with Bling Lagosians. And there's so many beautiful stories out there now that Nigerian filmmakers are making about Nigeria. So you have to take over the narrative about your country and about yourself if you want people to take you seriously. And I think telling your story is probably one of the most important things that Nigeria needs to start doing.
Will we be seeing more movie productions from you in the near future?
Absolutely. We're thinking of one or two others. In the next 18 months, something will come up definitely. So we're certainly interested in doing more movies.
I'm very excited to see that. I mean, Bling Lagosians is available on Netflix as well.
Yes.
How did you manage to broker that partnership? Because I know it was very, around the time where the 93 Days film came out, it was literally creating waves everywhere. But it wasn't actually online at that time, if I'm correct.
Yes.
How have you managed to now translate not only your films impacting the African continent, but becoming available to the diaspora as well?
The beauty of online platforms is that everybody gets to see your work. So we wanted to be on Netflix, and good work stands the test of time.
Exactly.
So in as much as then we were not able to get on, they came after us when Bling came out. So everything is sort of like worked out for good. So I think subsequent works will also be on Netflix, and even we're planning to put all our plays on Netflix as well going forward.
Amazing. There are a lot of young entrepreneurs that are very inspired by your journey from becoming an extremely successful lawyer and corporate to an entrepreneur, and you've thrived at it and transitioned seamlessly. And I love the way you've been able to take on those new territories almost in your stride, effortlessly. What would you say is your main advice to give to those at the very beginning of that very difficult entrepreneurship journey?
I think the first thing is to become an entrepreneur or to stay in that game, you have to be tenacious. You have to invest in time. And I think a lot of people want instant fame, instant glory.
Yes.
It doesn't happen like that.
No.
You have to invest time. This is 16 years later. This is our journey. We didn't start this way, and we're not going to end this way. So it's a marathon. But a lot of people think that any career whatsoever, there's no sprint involved. You have to pay your dues, and in doing that, you learn a lot and you evolve. And God on your side, you succeed. So I think tenacity, holding on to that dream and that passion are two critical things. And I think probably the other thing I would say is to be fearless. You know, you're going to be knocked.
Yes.
That's certain. You know, there's no free ride. There will be a lot of criticism. There will be a lot of pushback from people within and outside of what you're doing who will knock you. But you have to stay focused, because Rome was not built in a day, and one day with consistency, like in the Outliers, 10,000 times you keep doing it, you become an expert. I'm one of those people that believe that very few geniuses were born. Most people learn on the job, and the more you do it, the better you get. And that's it.
And you really have risen from beginning to really dominating that space. Do you think that, although there are so many now structures, there's so many examples of excellence, do you feel that there is a lot more room for young people to be able to have more opportunities to actually follow in your footsteps? Because although you've created such a strong structure, it's still quite an underdeveloped industry if you look at the rest of the world.
You can imagine what will happen if we had 1,000 Terra cultures in Nigeria or 2,000 Terra cultures. The amount of jobs you'll create in Terra culture, we on a monthly basis we recruit close to 150 people, for plays and our staff. Now imagine if we replicated that all over Nigeria. You can imagine the number of youth that will be employed. Second is that the amount of energy and talent that the young people in Nigeria have is limitless. So what we need to do is to invest in them, train them so that they can take over and expand. This little thing that we have started can be 10 times bigger. And I can see it already because I have a bunch of very young, well-spoken, well-educated, well-traveled young people working here at Terra Culture. And the amount of knowledge, all they need is that enabling environment where we don't have to pay close to 3 million naira per month to generate electricity. Doesn't make sense. So that kills any form of creativity if you're not able to run a business. So I think that there's room for growth. Not that I think, there is so much space. The opportunities are out there, and the Nigerian youth that you have there, they're super bright, and they have what it takes.
I love that you were mentioning that you're actually about to create a platform that will allow them to thrive. Could you tell me more about that?
So in investing in the youth, what we've decided to do is we're starting an annual festival, like I mentioned earlier. The festival will allow young people to showcase their skills, their talent. There are a lot of production companies owned by younger people, and what we want to do is to give them a platform where they can be seen by the world. In addition to that, we'll be having master classes where we'll bring experts to talk on specific subjects. We're also starting an academy, we're starting a performing arts academy. And the intention is to teach skills that you ordinarily will not get in Nigerian universities. So we're focusing on things like lighting, sound, animation, costuming, hair and makeup for stage. The intention is when we get experts to come in, we're partnering with various universities across the world. And we're working with a couple of embassies as well to achieve that. The goal is that by the end of each year, we'll have trained XYZ number of students who will be able to self-employ or be employed by others. So we're trying to sort of like fill that gap that exists right now between what the universities are churning out and the jobs that are available in the marketplace. Amazing,
and I love the fact that you've been able to translate such an impactful, successful business into now handing that gift over to the next generation through these different avenues. And what would you say that your ultimate purpose in life is?
I think, again, like I said earlier, you begin to understand your purpose the older you get, and I didn't know what my purpose was, to be sure. I think now I know for a fact that we're a platform. That's what we are. We're a platform to discover talent. We're a conduit where people come, they pass through, we impact, they go out, they conquer the world. A lot of people that have started with us are superstars in movies, on stage, sound engineers, they all own their companies today. Even business people, a lot of people have started from here at Terra Culture using our space. So I think that is our calling. Our calling is to train and equip people to go out there and conquer the world.
With you dedicating your life to not only celebrating and projecting the beauty of Africa and our cultures and our values to the rest of the world, but also empowering that new generation of people to follow in your footsteps, what policies do you think the government can set up to encourage more people to flourish as entrepreneurs in Nigeria in this industry?
I think the best government can do is, like everybody says, create an enabling environment. What does that mean? People like us, the taxes are just too high. It's punishing. So if you took out taxes from what I do at Terra Culture, you can imagine how much further we would go as an institution. That's one area. So we need some form of tax breaks in the arts. In addition to that, we just need more creative spaces. I know that the CBN, is the Central Bank of Nigeria, is looking at doing a lot more in the art space. So I do hope that it trickles down to the real artists, not at that level, the real people who are practicing their craft. I think they need a hub where people who want to sing, who want to record, people who want to perform, like the National Arts Theatre, should be working, and they should be able to access those spaces at a very minimal price. You know, those are the kind of breaks that we need in this space. In addition to that, I think that we just need generally for things to work smoothly in Nigeria. And then if we have more tourists, you can imagine what Terra Culture's crowd would be like, you know, because those who come here typically are those who are on vacation. So it's the holiday periods that you get those numbers. So if Nigeria was a tourist destination, you can imagine that all year round, you know, we will get so many more people in coming to our performances, and that cuts across all the different art forms.
Before we started the interview, I love the fact that I was so shocked because you're so full of life, you're so light, and you're such a positive ball of energy.
Thank you.
And I think that's translated in your life and your work that you've done, and creating almost a gift back to Nigeria and the rest of the continent of Africa and the world about the beauty that Africa has to offer, and also the beauty of you as a person. So I think we'll have loads of fun.
Thank you. I really do. And you know, honestly, when you talk about lightness, again, I take a lot from the actors and the people that I work with. These people are light. Their energy is positive, they're young, they work hard, all they want to do is perform. And you know, if Nigeria is able to provide them that platform where they can be an artist, like you can be an artist in London and still be able to survive. That's all they ask for. Beautiful, smart, young people who just want to conquer the world through their art. And they influence me greatly. And I hope that someday they'll be able to live their dreams.
Bolanle has for the past 10 years successfully managed Terra Culture, a proudly Nigerian organization which has been in the forefront of the promotion of the Nigerian arts and culture, developing talents and creating employment opportunities in the sector, with employment of over 60 staff and the creation of over 150 additional ancillary jobs on a monthly basis through its theatre and arts products, an impressive feat considering the lack of infrastructure in Africa in this industry. And she's managed to achieve this consistently against all odds.
I'm one of those people that believe that very few geniuses were born. Most people learn on the job. And the more you do it, the better you get. And that's it.